We're making this video just to help out people that are asking a lot of questions online and stuff about fishing Dworshak. It's not an expert video. I'm not an expert fisherman. We do okay. We've been fishing the reservoir for probably 20 years. But we do okay. But it's not the only way to fish Dworshak. It's not the end of how to fish Dworshak. You can fish Dworshak any way you want to. We run a Thunderjet 22-foot boat. I've had it for about 10 years now, and it's really done me well. And it's pretty good in Dworshak. The aluminum is good on the rocks and stuff. If you pull into shore or you camp or something like that, you don't have to worry about your boat getting tore up on the rocks. I run a 9.9 Yamaha. It's good because we do some ocean fishing up in Canada and stuff, and I need the extra power. But in Dworshak, it's almost on idle all day long. Burns very little fuel. It has TR1 Gold autopilot hooked up to it. This is nice, so you don't have to control the boat all the time. The boat will take a path and stay on it. Okay, this is the first part of a three-part type video. This part's going to be about long line. We call it long line, and you can probably call it something else. Some people call it a high line and whatever else. But it's just a line that doesn't have any leaded core line on it. It's not run through a downrigger. We just put a weight on it and go so many feet behind the boat. And that's what we're going to focus on this one. The next one we'll do on downriggers. And I'm definitely a downrigger guy. I really like the downriggers. They're so precise and so precision. And when other people aren't catching fish, downriggers seem to do the job. But long lining does have its place. It works a lot. We always put 2 downriggers out and then put a long line out behind the boat. And this video here, when we happened to be down there, we were running 2 ounces of lead. And we were going 110, 112 feet, 98 feet behind the boat. If you went to 3 ounces of lead, you could probably do that at 50 or 60 feet. You just have to figure out where that's at and where the fish are at and what they're doing. The easiest thing to do is to hook up a weight and put a line, but one of the things that in my opinion is really a good thing is the line counter reel. This is an Okuma 153. They're a little big, but I really like the line counters on them and stuff. They peel out very well. You don't have to stand and hold them. You can set them up, and I can show you where you can set them up, and they will go out very easily without touching them. And it's the best way to do, especially if you have inexperienced people on your boat that have a tendency to get backlashes in these kind of reels. But that works very well, and I like the big handles on them. What we did on this video is these are Ford fenders. There's a Model A and a Model T, and the difference in the Model A and the Model T is the big bell is in front and the little bell's in the back on them. They're opposites. And I also prefer to have the half gold and half silver blades on everything I do. It just seems to work better for me. I don't know why. Some days you do really good on silver, some days not. But this typically always does a good job. This trip here that we did to film this, the normal lure that we used was a Christina Special. It's one my daughter made. It's the colored design that she made. It always works. Well, guess what? Always just didn't happen. It caught a couple of fish and it wouldn't do any better. So we started to go through things in tackle box, see what they liked. And I'm a spinner fan. I like to run spinners. I've run hoochies, I've run spinning glows, I've run everything you can dream of for kokanee fishing. And spinners always seem to be in Dworshak Reservoir, seem to be the outstanding thing. Don't get me wrong, there's times that a hoochie on the back of a sling blade is going to do a fantastic job, especially early in the season when the fish are up. But when fish start going to 40, 50 foot deep like that, it's a lot harder to get them fish to bite on a sling blade than it is this. Dworshak's a dirty reservoir. It takes a lot of flash sometimes to get a fish there. But anyway, we went to the blue on this, which is a blue, it's a blue one that we made. We bought the blades. It's just a blue, looks like a bait fish type thing, I guess. In fact, the blade even says bait fish on it. But we made that ourselves in blue. And the other thing about Dworshak that I've noticed is they like a shorter spinner. We do a double hook, and we run a Matzero hook in Dworshak. A lot of guys run Gamakatsus. I think they're better. I love the Matzero because they have a square end on them, and they're kind of triangle-ish, I guess you would say, and it forces that hook to come up out through the middle of the nose more times than not. And they hook in really good. They're a wire hook, so you're not going to put a 4 or 5 pound kokanee on them kind of hooks because they're going to break. They're a wire hook. So you might want to go with a Gamakatsu and something like that. But in Dworshak, they're perfectly fine because you're never going to catch that fish that's so heavy it's going to bother a number 6 or a number 4 hook. And I do only run number 4s and number 6s. But anyway, that's the setup that we like the best for long lining. There's other ways. This is a custom rod. I built it myself. It's got a very stiff spine in the back, and it's got a very, very, very loose tip. And then we have the 2-ounce weight. I like the banana weights. They make a straight one, they make round ones. The banana weight to me just kind of travels through the water a little better. It doesn't. Straight ones have a tendency to flop back and forth in the water a little bit and give the rod tip a funny jiggle to me. But I really like the banana ones. They're easier to get, but it's the most common one made. Make sure you have swivels on both ends of it, because long lining will tangle your line up. And snubbers. This is a homemade snubber. We make them ourselves. They're made with corded material, and they're very stretchy and soft. This one here goes to about 14 inches. It does the job. I recommend them in Dworshak. Have I caught them without them? Yes. Can I buy a rod that's super limber in the tip, or make one like this one that works? Yes. But this is just extra insurance for every once in a while. It just seems like they help. I lose less fish with them, and they are very soft mouth fish in Dworshak. You're not gonna go without a snubber for very long and not notice a difference. But like I say, you can do it. But we prefer the snubbers, extra insurance. This is the other setup that we were running on this trip, and these are some little, I don't even know who makes these. I don't even know where I even got them. I've had them for a long time. But same thing. They're little willow leaf blades, and they have half gold, half silver on them. And we have the same setup. We got the bungee on it, and then we have the blue double hooked spinner. But like I say before, the spinners are short. You'll see spinners that are made with the double stack beads on them, and for some reason we get better biting with a shorter one, with only the half one. It just seems to work a little bit better. But that's really what we do in Dworshak when we're long lining. And like I say, even when I'm down rigging, I'll put that rod out the back, and I'm going to put, depending on what I'm doing, what time of year it is, but anytime in June or July, I'm going to run that thing out there, probably on a 2-ounce weight. I'm probably going to be out there as much as I can to be around 100 feet. Now, without line counters, that's tougher. You have to take your line from the reel and know how many inches that is. Say it's 2 feet, and then pull out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 till you get to your 200 feet. The line counters are worth the money. These Okumas have never failed me. They're not inexpensive. They're a $100 reel. They're not that bad. And Tika makes one that's a line counter that's a smaller reel, and some people prefer that one. I prefer the bigger handle, the bigger reels. So another thing to remember about Dworshak is speed. A lot of guys run pretty fast. I see guys running 1.5, 1.7, 1.8 in Dworshak. You can catch fish doing that. If you're picking up trout when you're in Dworshak, you're going too fast. I typically prefer 1.1 to 1.2, but I have picked them up at 1.3 and 1.4. I've caught them at 2.5. They will hit about anything, but we're talking about what gives you the best chance to limit out on Kokanee and Dworshak. So what we do is we put all the lines in the water. We kind of figure out what the fish are hitting. If it seems a little bit slow, or it should be a little better, we'll start making some big turns with the boat. And your line that's on the outside of your turn is going to go faster in the water than the one on the inside. If you make them turns and that outside rod is always picking up the fish, then speed up your boat, because you need to go a little faster. If your inside rod is the one picking up the fish every time you turn, then you need to slow down, because you're going a little bit too fast. Some boats are hard to manage at 1.1. This boat here, my Thunderjet's big enough. It's a 22-foot boat. But if there's a little bit of breeze, I really got to put the power to it, so I got to troll a little faster than what I like. But I prefer, that is my favorite number, 1.1 to 1.2. Okay, a little bit about bait in Dworshak. I've caught fish without bait in Dworshak, actually. It's on a spinner. Spinners, just like I said before, the spinners just happen to do it. We don't use much more than corn mostly, and we use the shoe peg, white shoe peg corn. We don't put any scents in it. We run it like it is. We just drain the juice off of it, put a little bit on each side so each person in the boat has bait at them. And we run one on each hook. We run double hooks. We run one on each hook. And I have run scents before, especially anise. I've run a lot of anise in Dworshak. There has times it seemed like that kind of helped if it was tough fishing, but not really a lot. The other thing we run is we run these Berkeley gulp and things like that. They look like a little maggot. They're a gulp alive, they call them. And then Berkeley makes a grub too, with pink ones and brown ones and white ones. We've caught fish on all of those. It doesn't seem to make any difference. They stay on a little better than corn, and there is times that you'll catch as many with that stuff as you will with the corn. So it's just a matter of figuring out what you have. Just have the stuff in your boat and try it. I'm horrible about getting in a boat and trying things. I'm constantly changing something. If I don't catch in Dworshak, probably if I don't catch a fish every 8 to 10 minutes, I start looking for something else. I look for different bait. I look for different lure. I look for different color. I look for different depth. I look for different speed. I'm going to do something until I figure it out. And here recently, just after this trip, I told a friend of mine about what we were doing, long lining, and how we were doing it. And he went 2 days later to the same exact spot that I went down on Dworshak. And when he got in there, he couldn't catch a fish at 100 feet behind the boat on a long line. He could only catch them at 50, 55. We were catching fish off a downrigger at 17. He was catching them at 24. So it just depends. Just you got to figure it out, and it's a daily change. And I've seen it change overnight. I've put stuff in the water that I did really good camping down there. You put something in the water that one day and just knock the crap out of them. The next day, you can't catch a fish on it. Change it up and you'll start catching fish. Little thing about color on lures. The lures that we prefer are a Christina Special, which is something that's homemade. You can't buy that anywhere. And we make all of our we make all of our lures. And after the Christina Special, probably our next popular one is probably a white. And then the next would be a blue. And this trip, the blue just seemed to smack everything. I don't know why. The friend of mine I was telling you about a minute ago, he went down, put the same blue on that I had. He couldn't catch a fish on it, switched to white, and he was catching fish on it. This is, mind you, this is only 3 days after we were there. So something changed, the color of the water, the sky, the smoke, making the sun shine different on things in the water. But there's a lot of things that them fish will hit. And we've caught them on chartreuse green, chartreuse, everything. So it's one of them things that you want to do is just keep trying things. And what we typically do, like I say, I'm a downrigger fan, so typically what we do is we put one color on one downrigger, another color on a downrigger, and another color on the long line out the back. The other thing I want to talk to you about is taking care of them fish. A lot of people think you can throw a bag of ice in a cooler and start throwing fish in it, or throw fish in your live well. Kokanee are very delicate fish. They don't do well with that kind of care. What we do, and it's the best thing that we've ever figured out to do, is we got a cube cooler. We fill that completely full of ice. We take some lake water and dump it in there, and then we throw them fish in that bucket of ice water. And there is no way, they get so cold you can't hardly even pull them out sometimes. I can pull out 4 or 5 of them out of there. I got to drain the water out to get the fish out of it, because I'll put my hand in there and 4 or 5 of them will just freeze my hand to death. So you want to take care of them fish very well. We've kept fish 3 days on Dworshak in 90-degree weather with that type of a setup, where in a live well or something else, or just laying in a cooler, isn't really going to cut it. You're going to start having some bones pop out, and the fish get soft, and it's going to give them a little bit of a funny taste when you go to can them or smoke them or whatever you do. A lot of people smoke them, say, man, my fish tastes funny. That's why. You want them to be as fresh as absolutely possible and almost frozen, and that is the best way we found to do it. A couple of bags of ice in a cooler with fish thrown on top of it, or ice on top of it, that's probably your next best step. But boy, if you have any opportunity to throw ice inside of a cooler and put water in it, and my wife Diane can't stand an ungutted fish in the boat, so she throws them into a 5-gallon bucket, and there might be 3 or 4 of them in there for about 5 or 6 minutes, depending on how your fish catching's going. And then she'll start gutting. I do like them. We've had fresher fish since he's been doing that. It seems like the sooner the guts come out of them fish, the better tasting they are when they're smoked or they're canned, especially canned. Some canned fish get a bitter taste to them, and that comes from not taking care of your fish. Okay, a little bit about lead core line. There's nothing wrong with lead core line. It works absolutely great if you don't have line counter reels. You can count your colors going out, and that's an easy way of doing it. The problem I have with it is, like I said before, I like downriggers. And if I use lead core line on a reel that's on a downrigger, then my ball's here at a certain depth, like 24 feet, and now my bait might be at 28 feet, 30 feet, who knows where it's going to be. It's going to be deeper than my ball, and I don't like to guess that. A lot of guys will put them up and set them up on rods in their boat and use them, even if they have downriggers, but they use different rods for the downriggers. I don't like doing that because I don't like a whole bunch of rods in my boat. I've already got 6, 7, 8, 10 rods in my boat. I don't need 3 or 4 more that have lead core line on them that's only used for one specific purpose, and that's lead core line. But if that's all you have, they work good. So where do we fish Dworshak? Literally there is fish everywhere in Dworshak. You can go clear up to Granddad, you can be clear down by the dam, and you're going to catch kokanee. I don't care if it's January, and I don't care if it's July. People say the fish all are at the dam and they work their way back up to the river to spawn. This is absolutely untrue. The fish spawn in Elk Creek, they spawn in Reeds Creek, they spawn in Long Creek, the Little North Fork, the Big North Fork. They spawn in several different places. And what happens is then people get the idea that they're moving clear up the reservoir when they're actually not. The only difference that makes people think that is because early in the season, the water's a little warmer down by the lower part of the dam. That's why the fishing in the spring and early summer is better there. When you go up higher towards Magnus Bay, places like that, the water's still cold, so the fish are still not as active there as they will be at the dam. So what I typically do is I'll hit the lower part of the dam in like once or twice a year. I don't like the lower part of the dam. It's a lot more busy. There's a lot more, and you get into the summer, there's a lot more people playing on jet skis and things like that, and I get tired of the constant chatter and people blowing by me and things like that. So if I can, I'll put in a dent, and then I'll run up, and I'll at least run to Magnus Bay or higher. And when people aren't doing very well down at the dam, we did really good down at the dam. Now they just quit. They're moving up the reservoir. They're moving slightly up the reservoir, yes, because they're starting to let water out of the dam. They let water out of the dam on July 5th every year. This year was the exception. They started that earlier. But they typically will let it out July 5th. When that starts, there's a change in that water. The water kind of flip-flops and flows over a little bit. Then them fish up top will be as good a fishing as the ones at the bottom are better. But this flow sparks them kokanee to start going up the reservoir towards where their spawning grounds are. It may be Elk Creek. A fish at the dam may just go to Elk Creek to spawn. He's going to head that way. So you may go into Elk Creek and start catching good fish. And the later it gets in the summer, the better that fishing around them spots is going to be. And the more fish that spawn in that creek that comes down in, the better the fishing is going to be out in front of them when they start staging up. Staging up in Dworshak, typically July 15th, July 20th, they'll start heading in and starting to stack up a little bit. Well, Dworshak on the early part of the season, May, that in there, Canyon Creek, Indian Creek, all of them are good, Dix Creek. They're all good on that lower end. Mary's Bay can be good very early. And that's because that water down there is a little bit warmer and them fish start a little bit earlier. There's fish up at Magnus Bay and places like that, but them fish are in colder water still. So they're not quite as active. You can still catch them, but they're not quite as active. The main thing about going to the Dworshak is the fish like a temperature of 52 degrees. So if you can seek out that temperature, that's kind of where they're going to be. But what we do is we look for spots that are between 2 points, an open mouth of a creek or something like that. But there's also spots in Dworshak where one spot will come out to a peak and another spot, and then will be 300-400 yards apart. We seek out them places, and we're going to go about 30-40 yards off the bank going up the reservoir. We're going to come down about 60 yards off the bank down the reservoir. But you can check a lot of these little peaks that come out. They're just points. And what happens is them fish stack on both sides of them points, and they stack in between them. It depends on what they're exactly doing, but a lot of times you'll catch them on a turn. But I'll turn through them and do circles through them, and you're gonna keep catching fish in there. Sometimes until you're done, until you get a whole limit, or all day long, or as long as you want to fish, you'll be catching fish there. What I was just getting ready to say is we are doing a circle through here. There's been fish laying from that little rotten log down there and clear up to here, and so we're just doing circles through them and picking up a couple of fish every time we go through them. It slowed down a little bit. It was fast there for a minute. It was a double hit every time we went through a couple of spots, but right now it's slowed down to one fish about every 7 or 8 minutes or so. But I'll see if I can get this one in instead of talking. He might have come off. But I look for spots like that, and sometimes there's a major turn in the reservoir where the thing makes a big long turn and then kind of goes almost a whole different another direction. The inside of them on the low side, on the downside of the reservoir as you're going up, the low side of them actually can hold a lot of good kokanee. And if the point comes out kind of shallow, or more shallow I should say, than the rest of the reservoir does, then sometimes on them long points that come way out like that, there's a lot of fish that'll be hanging off further. They might be 70, 80, 100 yards off the bank. But anyway, there's fish all over in Dworshak. A lot of guys fish under the bridge at Grandad. A lot of guys fish cranberry crickets, wherever you want to fish. There's fish typically just about everywhere you want to go. Whether they're biting well or not is a whole nother story. Times of year to fish kokanee. That is very funny in Dworshak. Some years you can go crazy. This year's one of them. Right around May 1st, you would just catch. I mean, you could limit out a few hours on Dworshak in May, and then it got a little tougher, And of course, they're small fish this year. But anyway, that's really rare that first part, and then it'll change. It'll roll over a little bit, and then that timing will change. But typically for me, I don't really get that interested in fishing kokanee till around the first part of June. I've gone in May. I do go in May just to get out of the house after a long winter and a wet spring or whatever. But I like to get out there in June. The weather's a little more stable sometimes in June, but the fishing seems to me more, or I should say less erratic. It's less erratic fishing in Dworshak in June to me than it is other times. May, sometimes I can go down there one day and I'll limit out one day. The next day I'll go down there, I can't catch a fish. And so I like the steadiness of it, and we're about 40 minutes from the lake, so it's a lot of trouble to go down there and spend the money and catch no fish or one fish. So I kind of play the odds a little bit there and stick with what I know and when I know. And our high times for kokanee, if I had to say the highest amounts of fish I've ever caught in Dworshak would be from the 16th or 18th of June until about the 15th or so of July. For whatever reason, them times in my logbooks tell me that we catch more fish then than we do any other time. This is the kind of net I like. I like the rubber netting on it and not the soft cloth netting, so hooks get hung up, and nothing makes me mad than when a hook's hung up in a net and I gotta try to get it out and the fish are biting like crazy. And I like them to have an extended handle like this. I like this push button one. They're expensive nets. This one here was probably 65 or 70 bucks, but it'll reach out around this. This is a tall boat. This boat's got a 3-foot sidewall on it for offshore fishing in the ocean. So it makes it a little bit hard sometimes to get them fish in here in the net. So I like an extended handle that'll reach out there and get them. Plus it's got to be compact in the boat. But yes, this year we are yarding all of our fish in. We netted a few early in the season, but now we're just like, well, why? Just yard them in there. It's not a problem. We lost one or two doing that. When we were out camping, we caught a limit of 100 in possession. We caught 50 the first day and 50 the second day. And I think we might have netted 3 or 4 of those fish for whatever the reason being. But most of them were yarded into the boat, and we did lose a few, but not very many. But like I say, when they get heavier and they get bigger, if you start doing that, problem is they rip their lips off and down in the water they go, and the way they go, and that fish is going to die. It's not going to live. And the next problem with that is when you get a big kokanee on there that's really pulling hard and flipping around, it's hard on gear, it's hard on your hooks, it's hard on your knots, it's hard on your rod tips. So just let it be up to your decision, whatever's easy for you. Sometimes we like yarding them in just because of fishing so fast that somebody's got the net out and somebody else has got another fish on and you can't use a net for it, so we do it with we yard one in and net one in. But it's entirely up to you. There's no difference in your fish levels other than I say when they're heavy. When the fish are heavy, you want to make sure that you're netting fish because it's hard on stuff. So I hope this video can help you guys. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to make a comment. Don't hesitate to ask a question. And if you really want to know something that's a little more technical or something, you can get a hold of me. Email at fishslayer13@hotmail.com. So go to Dworshak, have fun, and enjoy everything wild.